Then he latched on to Ginger Rogers, and they had a successful career of I don't know how many years, but they were really the stars of the American film. And
for generations, Gene Kelly danced across movie screens with a smile bright enough to light a stage and feet fast enough to outrun time itself. He was the golden boy of American musicals, athletic, charming, masculine, the man who made rain look like silk and concrete feel like a dance floor. When he swung around that lamppost in Singin' in the Rain, audiences believed joy could be choreographed. To the world, he was sunshine in motion. But legends are rarely made of only light.
he danced with Ginger Rogers, and they were a team. It was the older tradition, but he was the American dance to people all around the world. And
behind that famous grin was a man driven by perfection, intensity, and a discipline so sharp it cut more than just dance steps. Gene Kelly wasn't just a dancer. He was a general, a commander in tap shoes. And behind the scenes, his passion sometimes blistered the people who admired him most. Some call him a genius. Some call him a tyrant. Most call him complicated. Tonight, we look beyond the umbrella and the spotlight. Beyond the elegance and acclaim. Past the stories Hollywood polished and the nostalgia we all carry. We explore the real man. The feuds, the fury, the loyalty, the pride, and the fire that fueled a legend who demanded perfection, not only from cinema, but from everyone who entered his world. Before she became America's sweetheart, Debbie Reynolds was simply a young girl who dared to dream. 19, bright-eyed, naive in all the ways youth allows, and suddenly standing face to face with Gene Kelly, one of the most dazzling forces Hollywood had ever produced. If fairy tales were real, she might have expected mentorship, warmth, a guiding hand. What she got instead was fire. Gene Kelly believed in physical storytelling. He believed dance was discipline, sweat, and precision. He believed audiences should feel joy because the dancers had suffered and conquered behind the scenes. To him, perfection wasn't a goal. It was a duty. Anything less was betrayal of the art he worshipped. And Debbie Reynolds, innocent and untrained, walked straight into the path of that devotion. She didn't grow up tapping on wooden floors in smoky clubs. She didn't train for years under merciless Broadway instructors. She was a studio discovery. Talented, yes, but green in a world that ate softness alive.
When I did Singing in the Rain, I had never danced before, so I was kind of scared of everything, and Gene Kelly was the boss. But I was thrilled that it was a success when it finally did become.
Right.
It took about 5 years.
Yeah.
Kelly saw her not as fragile youth, but as clay that needed fire to harden, and he had no interest in sculpting gently. From the first rehearsals of Singing in the Rain, she felt the weight of his expectations. He corrected everything, every gesture, every turn, every breath. He pointed out each flaw as though flaws were crimes. Encouragement? None. Empathy? Rare. Comfort? Not his language. Debbie later said, "He criticized everything I did and never gave me a word of encouragement."
There were a lot of virgins around in those days. So I was glad that they picked this one.
Imagine hearing that from someone the world idolized, from someone whose approval could change your life. The Good Morning sequence looks effortless on screen. Cheerful, playful, almost innocent in its charm. But illusions are Hollywood's most powerful trick. The truth behind that scene is nearly mythic now. 15 hours of relentless takes. 15 hours of steps until muscle memory took over and pain became background noise. At the end of that punishing day, Debbie's feet bled through her shoes. She crawled beneath a piano and cried. Overwhelmed, exhausted, breaking, but refusing to quit. Childbirth was easier, she said years later, and she wasn't joking. Why did she stay? Because dreams don't always come in gentle packages. Because greatness demands a price. Because at 19, sometimes the only choice you feel you have is to survive the storm and hope the sky clears. Gene Kelly wasn't cruel for pleasure, but he could be cruel in pursuit of excellence. He demanded more from others because he demanded more from himself. Yet in that pursuit, he misjudged. He forgot that not everyone breaks and rebuilds the same way. Talent needs nurturing, fire needs air, and sometimes the fiercest passion burns the wrong people first. But time changes men. Years later, Kelly looked back and saw what his ambition had done. "I wasn't very nice to Debbie," he admitted quietly. "I'm surprised she still speaks to me." There's something heavy in that admission. Not drama, not guilt theatrics, but the fragile honesty of someone who realized too late how hard his edges had been. And Debbie Reynolds? She didn't spend her life bitter. She didn't turn a harsh beginning into lifelong resentment. She went on to shine, to become iconic, self-assured, beloved. She survived Gene Kelly's storm not because she was unbreakable, but because she bent without snapping. Her success is not proof that his methods were right. It is proof that her resilience was extraordinary. In their story, there is no villain and no simple hero. Just a young woman fighting to earn her place, and a brilliant man who hadn't yet learned that brilliance means little if kindness is lost along the way.
The concept, the directing, the cinematography, the lighting, everything, and he had it all on his shoulders.
Their legacy is both a triumph and a caution, a reminder that genius and gentleness do not always arrive in the same package. And if Gene Kelly's rain-drenched lamppost represents cinematic magic, Debbie Reynolds' tears beneath a piano represent the reality behind the magic, one built not just on talent, but on endurance. If you were 19 and the most powerful artist in the room pushed you to your breaking point, would it fuel you or shatter you? When Gene Kelly first danced through a studio street soaked in Hollywood rain, umbrella twirling, voice full of pure joy, he wasn't just performing, he was rewriting cinema. Singin' in the Rain became more than a musical number. It became a memory people wanted to live inside. It represented innocence, whimsy, and the kind of happiness that doesn't ask permission. For decades, that scene stood untouched, sacred almost. A moment you couldn't improve because it was already perfect. Then came A Clockwork Orange, and one of the most jarring collisions in film history. Stanley Kubrick's vision was cold, violent, disturbing. A world where cruelty was aesthetic. Malcolm McDowell, electrifying and fearless in the role of Alex, found himself improvising a moment during a horrific assault scene.
Well, when I did this little film with Stanley Kubrick called Clockwork Orange, the whole basis for the film and the book was Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
To bring life, twisted, sinister life, to it, he started singing. Not a creepy lullaby, not a dramatic aria. He sang Singin' in the Rain. Suddenly, the most joyful melody in Hollywood became a weapon. Light turned into darkness, innocence into mockery. And for Gene Kelly, that transformation wasn't clever art. It felt like theft. Years later, at a party in Hollywood, Malcolm McDowell approached Kelly excitedly, ready to meet a legend. He was still young, still proud of his groundbreaking role, unaware of the emotional territory he had crossed. He extended his hand, introduced himself, and Gene Kelly turned away. He didn't just ignore him. He shut him out, cold, without a word. "He cut me dead," McDowell later recalled. In that instant, the message wasn't subtle. It was a door slamming.
In hell's name are we gonna do? On the 5th day, Stanley came up to me and said, "Can you dance?"
Not because Kelly hated McDowell, but because Kelly hated what had been done to his moment, his creation, his legacy. A scene he poured heart into was taken somewhere he never intended. It was innocence repurposed for brutality. Joy twisted into menace. For him, it wasn't artistic reinterpretation. It was violation. McDowell would later say, almost sheepishly, "I took his wonderful moment and completely fubbed with it." And yet, even then, he didn't fully understand why Kelly felt betrayed. The industry had moved into a new era. Cinema was evolving. The golden age was fading. Realism and moral chaos were in fashion. But Kelly came from a world where beauty was sacred, where art lifted spirits, not weaponized joy. Later still, a surprising truth surfaced. Kelly's widow revealed that the anger wasn't aimed solely, or even mostly, at McDowell. Kelly was furious with Kubrick for not paying royalties for the use of the song. Not only did Kubrick turn the scene on its head emotionally, he didn't compensate Kelly for it. Imagine watching a piece of your soul used for shock value while someone else profits. To artists, creativity isn't just creation, it's possession, memory, identity. And to see it twisted without permission cuts deeper than criticism ever could. For Kelly, that scene symbolized his philosophy. Joy is powerful. Joy can change the world. In Kubrick's version, joy became cruelty's soundtrack. And while modern audiences may debate artistic freedom versus respect, one thing is certain. Kelly felt betrayed, not because he hated someone, but because he loved what he had built. Here, in this feud, or perceived feud, the truth becomes clear. Gene Kelly wasn't a man who hated people easily. He was a man who hated disrespect, who hated seeing art stripped of intention, who hated when meaning was bent into something he never agreed to. There was no shouting match between him and McDowell, no public statements, no dramatic confrontation. Just a cold shoulder delivered with the weight of a man who felt something pure had been taken from him. McDowell later understood. Kubrick never apologized. Kelly never commented again. Silence held the memory. Sometimes the deepest hurts aren't loud. They're the ones you carry quietly because the wound isn't anger. It's loss.
And I know you're a friend of Mr. Astaire's. What was their magic?
The magic, I think, and as I see Fred a lot, and we go to dinner, we talk about dancing, and
If someone reinterpreted your most cherished work in a way that betrayed your values, would you forgive them? To watch Gene Kelly dance is to see motion turned into conviction. He didn't float, he attacked. He didn't glide like Fred Astaire, he charged the frame like an athlete masquerading as a dreamer. Muscles, sweat, power. He brought the American body to dance in a way cinema had never seen. While Astaire wore elegance like silk, Kelly wore strength like armor. And that armor could sometimes cut the people beside him. Sid Charisse, statuesque and mesmerizing, was one of the few dancers who could match Kelly's precision. Their chemistry on screen felt effortless, electric, balanced, thrilling to watch. But the truth lived not only in their duets, but in the bruises she carried after them. Her husband, singer Tony Martin, once said he always knew who she had danced with based on her body when she came home. Bruises? Gene Kelly. No bruises? Fred Astaire. It was half a joke and half a confession. Kelly's style wasn't abusive, but it was intense, demanding, sometimes punishing. He believed dance should be felt, not only seen. He treated the set like a rehearsal hall, and rehearsal halls like battlefields. Feet weren't ornaments, they were weapons. Emotion wasn't performed, it was carved. Astaire and Kelly made the perfect cinematic yin and yang. Astaire was refinement, grace, aristocratic ease. Kelly was sweat, push, American grit. One danced to make it look effortless. The other danced to prove effort meant something. Astaire invited you into a dream. Kelly dared you to chase one. And for dancers like Charisse, that meant living inside two worlds. One that caressed, one that commanded. Charisse herself never spoke bitterly of Kelly. Like Reynolds, she understood that his power came from expectation.
Went right to love doing it, loved dancing. And I started dancing and really built my body up.
He didn't want excellence. He assumed it. Anyone next to him had to rise to his level or fall trying. Many dancers admired that. Some feared it. All respected it. Kelly once said, "If Fred Astaire is the grace of the American dance, I am the muscularity." He didn't want to be delicate. He wanted to make dance masculine, athletic, modern. And in doing so, he reshaped Hollywood's idea of movement. Suddenly, dance wasn't just elegance, it was force. It was lunging, leaping, driven by thunder instead of perfume. If Astaire gave dance wings, Kelly gave it legs that could sprint. But innovation often comes with a shadow. Kelly's fiercest rival was not Astaire. It was the pressure of the image he created. He had to be strong. He had to be commanding. He had to prove again and again that ballet and tap could be masculine, powerful, almost warrior-like. Vulnerability didn't belong in his rehearsal rooms, pride did. In chasing reinvention, he sometimes forgot the bodies around him were not made of steel. The dancers who kept up with him became legends. The ones who faltered faded quietly. Kelly didn't slow down to meet them. They sprinted to meet him, or they were left behind. He was, in so many ways, both a gift and a challenge. And here lies the paradox of Gene Kelly. He wanted to inspire, and he did. But inspiration under pressure can feel like coercion when you're the one catching your breath backstage, wiping sweat, nursing bruises, reminding yourself not to disappoint him again.
Those steps were easier than the ones I did with my brother, so there's no problem.
Easier?
Yes, because we used to do backflips and things, but
Charisse survived him with grace. Elegant, dignified, almost impossibly composed. In interviews later in life, she spoke with admiration.
Rehearsal hall one day, and I was rehearsing with Hermes Pan on something else. And I thought, well...
No bitterness, no resentment. That alone says something remarkable. For all the intensity, the exhaustion, the physical demand, she recognized the art behind the ache. For Gene Kelly, dance was not something you did. It was something you earned, with pain, with discipline, with everything you had. When you admire someone's brilliance, how much struggle should you accept to stand beside them? Gene Kelly never fit neatly into Hollywood's sentimental imagination of him. We remember the rain dance, the smile, the boyish charm, the rolled-up sleeves and jaunty stride, as if joy were his natural state, not his performance language. But behind the frame, Kelly was a man shaped by pressure, self-inflicted, culturally imposed, and artistically sharpened. And when people say, who did Gene Kelly truly hate? The answer is rarely as simple as a name. He didn't collect enemies. He collected standards. He was not a man misled by ego alone, but one propelled by ambition, shaped by insecurity, and haunted by the fear that talent, no matter how dazzling, can slip. Musicals were changing. Hollywood was changing. The world was shifting from bright chorus lines to gritty realism. Kelly wasn't just dancing. He was fighting time, fighting irrelevance, fighting to prove that dance could be powerful, masculine, urgent, American. And when you are fighting everything, time, industry, perception, people sometimes mistake the struggle for hostility. Debbie Reynolds didn't say he hated her. She said he tormented her with discipline. Malcolm McDowell didn't say Kelly hated him. He said Kelly resented a moment stolen, not a man. Sid Charisse didn't say he was cruel. She simply bore the physical truth of sharing the stage with someone who believed excellence wasn't spoken, but demanded. So, where did the myth come from? Why do we seek feuds where there were none? Bitterness where there was pride, enemies where there were only expectations? Because in the age of emotional stories and easy villains, complexity feels uncomfortable. It's easier to say he hated her than it is to say he didn't yet know how to be gentle with brilliance. It's easier to say he resented him than it is to say he mourned what art meant in an industry evolving past him. It's easier to label someone difficult than to explore why brilliance often arrives wrapped in sharp edges. Gene Kelly came from a generation where vulnerability was hidden beneath sweat and choreography. Men didn't confess fear, they outperformed it. They didn't bend, they kicked harder. And every dancer who shared the floor with Kelly entered his world. The world of a man who believed greatness didn't just happen. It was forced into existence, step by bruising step. But here's the thing history often forgets. Kelly grew. He mellowed. He recognized his roughness, even if late. His comments about Debbie weren't excuses. They were admissions. His silence toward McDowell wasn't arrogance. It was heartbreak. The heartbreak of seeing joy turned weapon. With age came softness, even if it never fully matched Astaire's elegance or his own screen persona. In the end, his rivals weren't co-stars or newcomers or directors. His rivals were time, doubt, and the unforgiving standard he set for himself. His feat told one story. his heart another. And somewhere between them existed the man. Not the legend in the rain, but the one who stayed awake long after rehearsal ended, wondering if perfection was ever enough. If greatness demands sacrifice, who should pay the cost? The artist or everyone who follows them? Gene Kelly will forever be remembered spinning happily beneath a lamppost, splashing through puddles as if the world itself danced along with him. But legends are rarely made from one emotion. Sunshine needs shadow to exist. And behind every glimmering smile, behind the clean lines of a perfect pirouette, behind that joyful stomp in the rain, lived a man who fought, not with hatred, but with hunger, with fear, with a devotion so fierce it sometimes spilled over the edges of kindness. So who did Gene Kelly truly hate? No one. The only battles he fought were with time, with expectation, with the boundaries of what dance could be, and sometimes with himself.
We did organize a musical repertory, and we had not only singers, dancers, and actors, but we had writers and composers and arrangers.
Maybe that's the lesson, that brilliance carries weight, that greatness has a cost, and that we can celebrate the beauty someone left behind while acknowledging the storms that shaped it. When we watch Gene Kelly dance, we don't see cruelty, we don't see conflict, we see the dream, the effort, the magic that survived everything, even the man who created it. And in the end, isn't that the legacy worth remembering?